Hello and welcome back to Movie Fight Club, where each week we duke it out about whether or not that movie of the week is good or not. This week we are watching Unforgiven. I am Mandy Kay, and I hate this movie with a fiery passion. It is objectively the worst movie I have ever seen.
And I'm Matthew. It's really good. This is going to be weird.
Why?
You sound genuinely passionate about that. Not like, oh, hey, we're here to play and we're recording a podcast and stuff. Okay.
No, this is objectively the worst movie I have ever seen. Can we just talk about Monty Python instead?
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to warn you, I can see that the microphone's picking up Lex purring.
Oh, that's fine.
Did you see him climbing up here?
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
So there's purrs in between this. So just on, if Mandy can't get rid of it in the editing, I'm really sorry. Enjoy the cat purrs. Good. Unforgiven. Not The Unforgiven, which I keep wanting to call it. I keep trying to call it. I've seen other people calling it Unforgiven. Okay. A 1992 Western. It was directed by and starred Clint Eastwood. It also stars Morgan Freeman, Gene Hackman, and Richard Harris. It received widespread acclaim and became only the third Western to win the Best Picture Oscar. Clint Eastwood also won Best Director. Gene Hackman won for Best Supporting Actor, and the film picked up the Academy Award for Best Editing. It was a big success.
It was.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it.
So it's another one of those. I don't think it's based on a book.
I don't think so. No. This is one of those movies Clint Eastwood read the script for back in the 80s. And he loved it, but knew he was not yet old enough to play William Money.
Okay.
So he held on to it. It was in his pocket for a long time.
Nice. So this is our first film that we've covered here that's not based on a book. Hooray. Hurrah. It's written by the person who wrote Blade Runner.
Oh.
Which is based on a book.
Okay, well, that helps.
Yeah, which tells you a lot about it. Hollywood likes films about films.
Films about films.
Particularly films like Singing in the Rain, which is about them making films and about the transition to talkies and other stuff going on. And by and large, they like films set in Hollywood, talking about the being in Hollywood experience, whether it's in front or behind the camera. They always go down very well. Whilst this is not ostensibly about Hollywood, it's not a film about films. It is a film about stories and the stories we tell about the Wild West. And I think in a lot of ways what it's doing, and one of the reasons why it was so well received, is that it is deconstructing the very black and white narrative of the, heroic gunslinger who kills people, but only when he has to, but he has these amazing skills that he's honed through means of not shooting people, it would seem. And that shooting people is, easy and only to be done when it's absolutely vital but important to do or something.
Or if you just need money.
William Money. And...
That was not funny.
Why are you laughing? Interesting. And it's talking about, because obviously within the film we have stories being told and whether the stories are true or not, or embellished or not. And we have the stories about these characters and their views on the stories and the shades of grey they're in. So the film itself, although it's not a film about film, it is doing that same work of talking about, hey, remember all those spaghetti westerns and all the things from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and all those great TV serials and so on. They're not true. Don't believe them. And here we're going to give you a real tale. I mean, and it's really hard. It's really strange because they're giving us a real tale in the form of a film. We don't know if this is true. This was made up.
Of course.
Based on some stuff they read, and it does appear they did some genuine research.
William Money was a real person, right?
I think so. And I think that I think part of the thing is some of the legends in this were based on various things that had happened, including some of the events, as I understand it. But the fact it is then directed and starring one of the great famous actors from the classic golden era of Westerns adds an air of richness to it. An air of prestige, maybe?
Oh, you think so?
So, well, I'm discussing this of whether, apart from whether it's good or not. Because we'll get into that in a second. But we can talk about...
I mean, I'm 100% with you that the reason people went to see it, and I would even go so far as to say the reason it was nominated for Academy Awards was because of Clint Eastwood. Like, name recognition.
Well, that's a slightly weird revisionism thing. We think of Clint Eastwood as this great classic director who does these very worthy big films. He, before this, had talked about how they're never going to nominate me for an Oscar. I'm not that sort of person, not that sort of director, and I don't really give a what's it about that. And then suddenly he does this very big, worthy film, which I think it should be nominated. I think, it's doing something very interesting in taking that idea, and this is, one of the last great Westerns, and giving us the classic, in inverted commas, true story of what it was like in the Wild West.
Right. I think I'm saying because Clint Eastwood is known for his Westerns, for starring in Westerns. This was his 34th starring role. It was his 16th directorial, I don't know, whatever that word is. Okay. But, I mean, Clint Eastwood, when you think cowboys and when you think, like, there's, oh my God, I just forgot his name. John Wayne. There's John Wayne. And then there's Clint Eastwood. Yeah. Like, those are the two people that you think of. And so for Clint Eastwood to be directing and starring in a Western in the 90s, like, I think that's what I mean when I say name recognition. Like, this was a Clint Eastwood Western.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it got attention.
And he is starring as the bitter old gunfighter who's tried to retire and move away from that life and that thing. Like, there might not be so much acting going on his part at times.
That is an understatement. Yes. So
I'm saying all this to sort of set it in its place. How it was perceived and how it came about when people saw it in the 90s. And I think it still holds a lot of that place for a lot of people.
All right. Yeah. This is the movie for boomers.
Ooh. Well, that's an argument that will win me over. Go ahead.
I mean, in a lot of ways, I feel like this is the movie that killed Westerns.
Killed Westerns, okay.
I think it killed Westerns, okay. which I realize I'm going to have to argue the point just because this did earn a couple of Academy Awards, including Best Picture. But you didn't get Westerns after this anymore. Tombstone came out the year after, which is arguably a Western, but it's also a fluffy Western.
Okay.
And then there weren't really any more at all after that.
I will agree with you. Like, the Western is not a film type made in one. And there aren't many examples of it, and people have made Western films, but they are singular, significant examples rather than, again, the sort of 50s, 60s, and into the 70s where it was the genre.
It was absolutely the genre. I mean, there's a reason that we have, at least on cable TV here, we have stations dedicated to Westerns. Right. Like encore Westerns. Like, it's every time I go to my granny's house, there's a Western on TV. Nice. Every time I go to my grandma's house, she's watching, like, reruns of, Tombstone was a TV show as well, right?
It was.
Like a black and white TV show.
So.
Yeah, that's what they're always on. Yes. Like, that's what they watch.
Love what you love.
Oh, I'm going to yuck some people's yum here. So, yeah, I mean, just as boomers have killed our planet, this movie, which was made for boomers, killed the Western.
Interesting. Because I would, I'm saying, completely agree with you that Western is not a genre anymore. And at this time was becoming less so. I think a large chunk of that is for other things than this film. It's almost this film, I think, gets credit as well, if we're going to make them this good, let's stop. You know, we're not going to top this. We're not going to do anything that's going to be, oh, this is the greatest Western. This is the best. This is absolutely a pinnacle, go out on top sort of situation.
Okay, we're gonna have to go through some things because I'm getting ready to list off a bunch of things that I do not think are good about this movie,
Okay.
and like there's nothing left to make it a great movie. The writing is awful. There's no cohesive story. The dialogue is terrible. The acting is terrible. Morgan Freeman is a bad actor in this movie, and it hurts my heart to say that, but it's bad. Like, objectively, it is bad acting. Frances Fisher, I love her, but she didn't act well in this movie either. Alice. Strawberry Alice.
Who the F is Alice?
The
Madame.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What else would I know her from? Other than it would seem Striptease and Titanic and other such classics.
She was the mom in Titanic, wasn't she? I've seen her in other things.
Oh, she's she was the wife in the Watchmen series. Okay, yeah, no, I know what you're talking about now.
Okay. She's a great actress. The cast in this is objectively wonderful. But this movie, like, I don't know, like, the material was so bad that even this cast couldn't carry it. It felt like they were reading words off of the page. They were not acting. And, God, the scenes where Frances Fisher was just, like, screaming and throwing mud.
Mud.
Like, it was wooden.
Okay.
There was no actual emotion there. I was not invested in any of these characters. I didn't care about the story. There wasn't actually a story. Like, this, if I had to summarize the movie, I can, but there was no, like, character development arc for anybody at all. Everybody at the end was either dead or exactly the same as they were at the beginning. And it just didn't matter.
Performances could go either way. It's really hard because it's a Western. And it's certainly Clint Eastwood used to playing a Western, and characters in Westerns are not necessarily the most well-drawn. No, I will call out performances. I will call out Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman's extraordinarily good in this. Doing what Gene Hackman does. This is the R-rated Lex Luthor, frankly, but it's very good. I would argue the writing, though. The writing is exceptionally good.
Oh, no.
There is a solid story here of the men commit the crime against the women, but it's not perceived as a crime because of the way property rights are clearly done as a thing here. And they hire men to take revenge on them, and stuff ensues from there. So it has a core plot that you can talk about. The character arc's a really interesting one. I hadn't even thought of that, because yeah, it's not a character arc. It's about us discovering who these characters are and getting into the layers of them. And again, this comes down to the sort of traditional Western where they talk as they're riding along and share things and so on. You get some of that here, but it's actually in them, these older Western folk, Wild West men, whatever the term might be, cowboys, let's go with that, getting pulled back into their habits. I'm letting you Google. Whatever you're Googling. And then I'm going to make my point so you can listen to it.
Yes. I'm sorry. Continue. I will make my point when you're finished.
So it's not about necessarily their growth and character arc, although you do get that because he goes on this quest because he realizes life on the farm is not going to be a life for his children, and this is a way of changing that life. But to do so, has to pick up his gun one last time and ride out on one last ride.
Mm-hmm. The old man who can't even stand upright long enough to corral his pigs because he keeps falling over. He can't get on his horse without falling off of it. Miraculously, in the final showdown, can shoot everybody in that stupid saloon and kill them all without getting shot himself, even though they're all shooting at him, and he's standing in the open.
Well, that's the core of everything from the film. Oh, we're getting into it here. I'm going to come back to that and just finish off the point I was on.
Sure,
that's all right.
Sorry.
Because the writing, and this is the bit that I'm not sure whether I like or not. The film has an opening title card with a bit of information on it. And then at the end, it has a bit more information on it. And the film...
Horribly written title cards, by the way. Sorry!
The film says it's about the husband of the woman who died. Through those title cards. In some ways, it's trying to be about her. It sets up that this woman married him. I think it describes her as a comely lady who had opportunities or options, and she ended up marrying this swine, William Money. And no one could understand why, or her mother couldn't understand why, and she then died, and he then disappeared after this adventure that we see him go on. So it almost wants the film to be about him trying to do right, potentially because he met the right woman, fell in love with the right woman, he tried to reform his character and change, but the only way to get that change is through going back to his old ways and the things that he was trying to give up. But that allowed him to get the change of the life that maybe they wanted. That's interesting and meaty. Go on.
I have so many thoughts about this movie. I'm sorry. It's killing me. So, but we don't know William Money at all. All we know from the title card is that he used to be a thief and a murderer. And then over the course of the movie, we're told stories over and over again about him. We don't see him do any of these things ever. And we learn towards the end of the movie that most of the stories that we're told are fabricated or highly, highly exaggerated. So we still don't know who this man is. And so there's no, he wants to be better for his wife, and then he tries to go back to this life so that he can get money, and it doesn't work out. So he just decides he's not going to be this son of a bitch man anymore because his wife made him a better person. Like, they tell us that, but they don't show us that at all. They beat us over the head with it, with the way that they tell us, with the stories, with the number of times that Clint Eastwood utters the words, "I ain't like that no more." Right? But we don't see it. No. We don't experience it. We don't experience anything in this movie. We're told everything.
Okay.
That's part of why I have a problem with it.
And this is a film about stories and the telling of stories. So it's the point that all these people have been told all this stuff and they have not been shown. And you're absolutely right. We finally get to that piece at the end and we are shown what he can do. And we're shown and we can understand what he can do because of that scene in the middle with Gene Hackman with Lex Luthor and Daphne from Fraser's Boyfriend and Dumbledore. Okay? Are locked in a room together, okay?
Oh my God, that's who that was.
That's who that was.
I could not place him. I knew he looked familiar. He looks a little bit like Michael Rooker if Michael Rooker had a British accent. That's Dumbledore. Okay, got it.
And
sorry.
Michael Harris comes into this, Richard Harris, comes into this film as a, almost breath of fresh air, an interesting character who's prepared to talk and do things and antagonize and cause action to happen. So, it's interesting when he comes on. But we get that scene in the middle where, it goes on for so long with Gene Hackman setting the record straight about these stories and talking about the stories and talking about what actually happens when men have guns drawn on each other and what you decide to do with those guns. And he talks about the person who can draw the gun the fastest is not the one who usually wins. It's the one who draws it smartest. It's the one who can draw the gun and aim and fire and keep their cool whilst doing it. Drawing fast means you generally miss. Or you shoot your toe, or you're too drunk, or something else. And we've had all this information, all this thing about it, and he does this whole thing, and he talks about how hard it is to kill. And we see it with Morgan Freeman, and we see it with the Schofield Kid. Killing is a difficult thing. We see it with the women. The women don't go and kill these men. They hire people to do it because that's how these things are done. They hire killers because they don't want to be killers themselves. And in the end, you have Clint Eastwood in the bar, shoots Gene Hackman, drops to a knee, shoots like 3 other guys because they're now aiming in the wrong direction, and is then able to intimidate the rest because they don't want to be the one who is shot. They could have shot him. They absolutely, if they all shot at once, they could have shot him. 1, 2, maybe 3 more of them would have been taken out. But they'd have got him. But they don't want to be that one. They are so afraid by that point. They're afraid of the stories they've been told, and they're afraid of what they've just seen. This person who's cool enough to do that. That they run away. He gives them a chance to run away and they take it. And it's the pinnacle of having been told all these stories all the way through and then seeing both things are true. He is the vicious killer. He is the person who can gun down 5 people with, 2 bullets or whatever the stories that were being told were. And Gene Hackman's story is true, that it's really hard to do, and you have to keep your cool, and that's exactly what he does. To the extent when Gene Hackman is picking up his gun, and you're like, oh, they're all going to end up dead. It's going to be one of those really bleak films. He doesn't shoot him, drop to a knee and shoot him again and do some. He just steps over and puts his arm on puts his foot on his arm, and he then can't raise the gun to him. And it's just, he's in control of the situation, keeping his head, and I think it's a terrifically clever way to deliver on everything you've had elsewhere in the film.
But it doesn't make sense, and it's not earned.
How does it not make sense?
At the beginning of the movie, he could not shoot a tin can with that gun. The only way he could aim and shoot what he was aiming at was when he went and got the rifle. Mm-hmm. And then he can't ride the horse anymore, right? Like, he's rusty. He hasn't done this stuff in 10 years. He hasn't shot a gun. And he rides after. He gets Ned, and he goes after the kid. And they finally catch up to the folks at the bar T. And Ned can't do it, so he takes the gun. And the rifle, the only thing we've seen him hit anything with so far, the rifle, it takes him several shots to shoot the kid in the gut. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. He's still not shooting with a pistol. He didn't pull the pistol out whenever he's covering the kid, whenever they go to the ranch to get the other guy. And so miraculously, this pistol that he couldn't use, that he hasn't used since the last time we saw him not be able to hit anything, suddenly it just all comes flooding back and he can take out everybody in the room. It's not earned.
Not suddenly at all, because by this point, he started drinking again. He has killed men, and he's now doing it for a cause he supports, he's invested in.
Well, sure. I mean, yeah, he's pissed off they killed Ned, which I totally 100% get. But I don't buy that he could go from not being able to hit the broadside of a barn to taking down a room full of men pointing guns at him.
He doesn't, but this is the point. He doesn't take down the whole room. He does enough, and the stories that go with him do enough that he clears the room, but he shoots like 3 guys.
He killed more than 3 guys.
I think it's like 3. I think like maybe 3 and Gene Hackman. But it really isn't many. It's the point of...
All right. Well, I came out of it thinking he killed everybody in the room.
He intimidates them because he says, anyone who doesn't want to die can leave now. And they all scarper because they don't want to be the next one that he shoots. And it's... Maybe it's far-fetched that suddenly he's back to that thing, but it is this stepping back into the character he wanted to be. In the same way, you didn't have an issue with John Wick doing the same.
No, but we had seen enough of John Wick to know that he had it, and we still never saw William Money have it.
Okay, that's fair.
We were told exaggerated stories, but we never got to see him actually do those things.
And maybe this is the difference. In John Wick, they're doing the thing of, actually the stories are true, and he is that thing. In here, what they're telling us is the stories aren't true. The stories are exaggerated because people like to hear tall tales. People like to go to the cinema and see the crazy westerns that we see. But actually, what's real is these guys don't like to raise a gun against someone and kill them. It's hard to do, and you don't want to shoot someone. Again, the end of that scene with Gene Hackman and Daphne's boyfriend and Dumbledore. They each get the gun and they're not prepared to kill him, despite what they could do with it. And so at the end, you see Clint Eastwood using everything that we've seen. And it's good. It's good because it's tense whilst being triumphant.
triumphant.
Because he outdoes them. Part of the other really good thing about it is that he and Gene Hackman are almost the same side of the same coin. They were these not lawmen and not lawful types, and one of them has gone into law, and one of them has started a farm. Neither of them are necessarily suited to it. Yeah, there's some definitely shady stuff going on with Gene Hackman and his troops.
Oh, yeah.
But they are basically the same sort of person. And we see Gene Hackman has sort of stayed in fitness, whatever the word is for that, kept his skills, but he's still outdone by Clint Eastwood, by our hero, our protagonist, our goodie.
I think that's one of the other issues I have with this movie, though, because generally with Westerns, with any sort of action movie, you have a clearly delineated good guy and bad guy. You've got white hats and black hats, and you want the good guy to win and to put the bad guy away. And there were no good guys or bad guys in this. No. I mean, the men who cut up the woman were clearly bad guys, right? But that didn't necessarily mean they needed to die for it. And a whole bunch of people ended up dying over this. And then a whole bunch of people ended up dying because the sheriff decided to make an example out of Ned, who didn't kill anybody at all. And so it's just this massive gray area, and I don't want gray in my movies.
Okay.
Particularly my action movies. If the hero, the quote-unquote hero of the movie is going to be murdering people and I'm supposed to root for him, I want to be able to root for it. And I couldn't root for anybody in this movie.
No. And that's, the film is telling you that. The film is saying, we've had all these stories, which are black and white and very easy to spot, and it's all good. And they're, you know, in the film, they have stories and books and, what was it, The Duck of Death?
The Duck of Death.
Brilliant. And then he proves that he can read. That's good. That's solid. Anyway, but they're saying you can't believe them. They are told by the winners, and they want to tell it in the best light possible. And they're not true. And this film is saying what we're showing you is true. Now, again, it's a film and a story unto itself, so it's not necessarily, you know, quite on point with it. But it is saying everything that's come before you can't really believe. Which is a nice way to separate yourself from the genre.
It makes it hard to enjoy it from an audience perspective.
Okay. And it is also hard that at the moment we want enjoyable things.
Also true.
Given the last, you know, obviously 2 years, 18 months, whatever it is at this stage. Like my nice, happy comedies with Kristen Wiig putting on an accent. Want more of them.
All right, I want to go back to the writing again. This is what I was looking up. I was looking up the script because there was this one section that it was just so awkward as he was talking. When Money was leaving his children, and he's trying to get on the horse, and the horse is spinning around and he can't get on it, but he's also still talking to them. He says, I can't even do this because it's so bad. But he's talking about how the horse is getting even with him for the sins of his youth.
The horse is getting even with me for the sins of my youth. In my youth, before I met your dear departed ma, I used to be weak and given to mistreating animals. Come on. This horse, them old hogs over there. Oh, getting even with me for the cruelty that I inflicted. I used to be able to cuss and whip a horse like this, but your ma, rest her soul, showed me the error of my ways. I'll be back in a couple weeks. You remember how the spirit of your dear departed ma watches over you.
That's 3 times in 15 seconds that he says, dear departed mother. And Clint Eastwood could not deliver those lines in a way that made sense.
Okay. I don't even remember the lines, to be honest with you.
The other scene that sticks out to me is when he was with Ned and they were riding in the rain, and Ned's trying to offer him the whiskey. And he won't take it, and he keeps saying, I ain't like that no more, I ain't like that no more. And then they switch to Ned asks him, do you think that kid really killed 5 men?
Think that kid really killed 5 men?
No.
You know, When he was talking back there about the time them deputies had the drop on you and Pete.
Yeah?
Well, I remember there was 3 men you shot, Will, not 2.
Well, I ain't like that no more, Ned. I ain't no crazy killing fool.
Still think it's going to be easy to kill them cowboys?
We don't drown first.
Just was so flat and so emotionless. Like that whole scene, like I literally felt like I was just watching 2 people read in monotone words on a page. Enough so that while I couldn't remember the line, I remember the scene because I remember thinking, wow, this is just really bad.
Morgan Freeman is, I think, the weakest link in this.
Does that not hurt your heart to say, though? I mean, this is Morgan Freeman.
It's almost surprising seeing him in a film like this. It does not feel like the sort of film that suits him.
Right.
And apparently he found out about this because Kevin Costner had been involved somewhere. And when they did Robin Hood a year or 2 before this, he found out about it and then got in touch with Clint Eastwood to get cast.
Okay.
And it almost feels like the sort of thing, when sort of actors, male and female actors, get fairly big and a bit of notoriety, they kind of do every sort of film and combination to see what works for them. I'm going to throw out people like Brittany Murphy. I saw her in Clueless the other day. I thought she's someone who's sort of done every kind of role and every different sort of thing, and sometimes she's the lead, and sometimes she's the sidekick, and sometimes she's the love interest. Ashton Kutcher. Sometimes he's serious, sometimes he's silly, sometimes he's the lead, sometimes he's Steve Jobs. Just actors who are thrown into different roles to see what they can really do the best with, and because it adds a bit of a name recognition to that person's film. It almost feels like they're seeing, can Morgan Freeman do a Western? And I don't think he can.
No.
I don't think this is the thing for him.
He was more believable in Robin Hood.
Like, he was good in Robin Hood.
Yes, he was. He was good in Robin Hood. He was not good in this.
No, because the big things that follow this up for him are Shawshank Redemption, Outbreak, Seven, Chain Reaction. Those are films he's good in, and he's suited to the roles he does in them. Whether the films themselves are good or not, but, there's something in this that doesn't quite work. He doesn't have the grizzled side that at least Clint Eastwood brings with him, whatever you think of Clint Eastwood as a performer. And again, if I'm saying Gene Hackman comes along and does the thing Gene Hackman does, Clint Eastwood comes along and does Clint Eastwood on screen. And it works,
No.
It works for some people. It works for enough people that he is a marketable commodity in his own film.
Did you know that this movie was originally called The Cut Whore Killings?
I can believe it. That sounds like what the book would be called, or the short story is based on, or something.
So I want to read you this quote. When Eastwood got it, he wanted, he brought in the screenwriter of The Outlaw Josie Wales to advise him on it. Her name's Sonia Chernis. This is what she had to say about it. We would have been far better off not to have accepted trash like this piece of inferior work. I can't think of one good thing to say about it, except maybe get rid of it fast.
Did she say why?
Didn't.
Does she?
No. The thing they link to isn't available, so I just have that one quote. Apparently Eastwood did decide at that point that it needed a rewrite, but then he realized he kept messing it up, and he went back to the original. The only thing he changed was the title.
Okay. So there was another thing that I did read that it took him so long to come to it because he has a script reader, obviously, as he should, who read it in like the 80s or something when it was first pitched and said it wasn't very good. So it took him ages to actually pick it up and do something with it and to look into it more. And that's exactly the right thing. Yeah, I can imagine this was not good at some stage and they couldn't recommend it. And then,
still not good.
And then either you come to it and make changes, and we don't know what changes they did or didn't make. I don't believe they only changed the title. But also, films fit different eras. A film about the stories that are told, there was a time that wouldn't have worked. In the 2000s, we were not doing some of this sort of stuff. We were doing high concept sci-fi. Because again, genres change and come and go with different values.
I feel a little bit like you're trying to romanticize it by saying this is a movie about the stories that we tell.
It is a movie about the stories we tell. Jane Hackman has a whole thing in the middle about how it's about the stories we tell, and the stories are important to the world that we're seeing in the film. Like one of the only characters who ends up alive is the story writer.
Oh, I thought he killed him. Did he not kill him?
I thought he was left alive. Because he lets him go, because he has a whole thing of, who did you shoot first? Because...
Oh, that's right, he did.
Bill Daggett said, you always shoot the best gunman first.
That's right.
Which, again, isn't true. You shoot whoever you see first and can get a lock on, basically. You know?
I don't know. There was not one enjoyable thing about this movie for me.
Really? Duck of Death. and the whole sequence with Dumbledore. What was his name? English Bob?
Richard Harris.
English
Bob. Dude, the scene with him on the train was bonkers.
It's brilliant. And again...
It came out of left field, had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, it's just suddenly the film takes a left turn and introduces a new character that we have no idea what's going on with them.
I was watching this and I was just going, I don't know why they're telling me this. But, it makes no sense. And it still made no sense. Even later, it served no purpose in introducing us to this man.
But it's reinforcing the point. His reputation has preceded him. The stories about him preceded him. He doesn't even have to fight at that stage. It's doing that work so that we can believe it as it goes on. And then when it all crumbles and we find out all these embellishments he's told, it's more enjoyable to see him in prison and Bill telling him exactly how it is and exactly what happened to some of these.
All right, I'll take it back. There's one enjoyable thing, and it is the thing that you said, the duck of death. I'll go with that, the duck of death, but
great.
Nothing else. I meant it when I said it's objectively the worst movie I've ever seen.
I don't believe that.
It was a waste of my time, and I will never watch this movie again.
Well, that's fair, and you don't have to if you don't like the thing. But it is doing some good stuff that I wouldn't have taken away from it. It's a very clever way to tell a story. Yeah, because that's the thing.
Completely.
It is a story itself, but it's trying to con us and tell us hey, this is the real story. This is the one to believe, folks. Wink. Despite I'm in a movie, munching on my soda and my pretzel and whatever I've got,
See, all of these things that you're talking about are things that I would be interested in seeing in a good movie. I want to see a movie that does that well.
Right.
Because Unforgiven didn't.
Okay.
I'm listening to you talk about it, and I'm like, wow, I wish I had seen that.
We watch different films. How did that happen?
I didn't. I don't know, but it's... No, did not like it.
Okay.
One bit.
Okay. And you're holding that against the film?
Yes, I hold it against the film that I didn't like it.
So we dub the Unforgiven.
Oh my God. I should have known. I should have known you were going to try to do that at some point.
So, that's what we think. That's what we have said we think. As ever, we like to hear from everyone else and find out what they thought about each of the films we watched. You can find us on all the social medias at Eloquent Gushing, or you can use the hashtag on Twitter, hashtag Movie Fight Club. We always try to put up a poll about the films after the episodes come out, so do make sure you go and vote as well. And leave us a little comment about your thoughts on whether... I don't even know how we describe our feelings on this.
Worst movie ever made? Best Western? I don't know.
Most honest Western? Maybe? And you can find all of our other work and all the podcasts we do and all the exciting content that you can download and enjoy by going to our homepage, eloquentgushing.com. Mandy, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Mandy K, or you can go listen to me talk about the Shadow and Bone Netflix series and the book on the Enter the Fold, a Shadow and Bone podcast. What about you, Matthew?
I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all the places. I'm Matthew Vose. Look me up and you'll probably see me smiling, maybe in a suit, if you're very lucky. And you can find me mostly talking on the Marvelous podcast, where we talk about all the Marvel TV shows. So we need to decide what we're doing next for episode 8.
Oh, yeah.
This was a random classic film, because it was it was both the AFI Top 100 and a Best Picture winner. So next we're going for a recommendation. Shall I tell you what we get?
Please tell me what we get.
We get Snatch.
I don't even know what this movie is about.
Guy Ritchie's follow-up to Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch.
Ah, crap. I hated that movie too.
This was a recommendation from me.
From you.
Because we said that we had to watch it because it's it's a completely different film, but it is a follow-up.
It is a follow-up. Yes. Okay.
I mean, it's not a sequel. It's the next film.
Right, right. Okay. Maybe I will like this one when I hated Lock, Stock, and
Maybe you will. And if you don't, we'll then go on and watch Layer Cake, which is considered the third in that series. Okay. Shall I spin the wheel?
Please spin the wheel.
Spinning the wheel. And we're going to see who gets to like the film. I mean, you've never seen it, so we do have a rule around it anyway. The person...
Yeah, but we threw that rule out the window for Unforgiven.
Yeah, but neither of us had really seen it or could remember watching it.
Oh, okay.
The good news is you're the fanatic. You're the one in support of Snatch.
Okay. So, either way, it was going to be me.
Yeah.
All right. Snatch it is. If you like this thing that we do, you can also support us over on Patreon. You can find some exclusive content, some fun stuff over there. For as little as $1 a month, you can support us, and you can find us at patreon.com/eloquentgushing.
And don't forget the first mall free to Movie Fight Club. And don't forget the first rule of Movie Fight Club is to tell all your friends and family about Movie Fight Club.